Coming up on this episode of DL Weekly, the Food and Wine Festival is coming, World of Color returns.
More Galaxy's Edge details, we take a closer look at the Matterhorn, and more. DL Weekly starts now.
Welcome to DL Weekly, a podcast about Walt's original Magic Kingdom, Disneyland. We cover the latest news and information from the resort, test our skills at trivia, and have a discussion about the parks every week. We invite you to send in your feedback and stories. Our contact information can be found at dlweekly.net. Now sit back, keep your hands and arms inside the podcast, and enjoy this week's show.
Hello and welcome to this episode of DL Weekly for the week of February 27th, 2019. I'm Teg Bushman.
And I'm Teresa Urban. We would like to send a shout out and a big thank you to all of our supporters on Patreon, including Derek J. for joining us at the general admission level, and also to Kirsten R. for joining our cast member patron level. This support helps make DL Weekly possible. Our patrons get some pretty nice perks like access to our Discord chat, live show recording, some DL Weekly swag, and more. If you would like to learn more, head on over to dlweekly.net/support.
Well, have you taken advantage of the free year of touring plans yet? Why not? It's as easy as contacting ConciEARS to book your next Disney vacation. James and Mike would love to provide you with this excellent service, along with helping you plan a great Disney vacation at no additional cost to you. You already know you want to go to the parks, so why not contact ConciEARS and get the planning started? Remember that dining reservations start at the 90-day mark, and they can help you with those as well, so the earlier you get started, the better.
We have launched another way for you to join in the conversation with the community. You can head over to dlweekly.net/forum to be taken to our new forums. The forums are free and open to everyone to chat about Disney parks all around the world. So head on over, make a quick post about yourself in the introductions forum, and join in on the discussion.
Now let's get to the news. Just a quick program note that after recording the episode, they had a cast member party revealing the Galaxy's Edge costumes. So we will have a short little mini episode later on in the week to cover that. So otherwise, enjoy the episode.
The DCA Food and Wine Festival begins this Friday, March 1st. The booths are set up and ready to go with their menus already on display. There are so many delicious and interesting options. Some of the things that caught my attention were the fried artichokes, the ghost pepper mac and cheese, and the strawberry coconut rice frushi.
Oh, frushi.
I want to try it so bad. One of these years, we are going to make it for the Food and Wine Festival just to try frushi. It's so unique, but it sounds so delicious.
It does. It does. Well, Teresa, being from, or now living, I should say, not from, but living in the Midwest, this Nuts About Cheese food booth kind of sounds interesting because you can't go wrong with cheese. And then, of course, they have a creamy Oikos yogurt cheesecake, and I love cheesecake, so that looks really good. I don't know. This food stuff is always so hard to pick because everything just sounds so good and it looks beautiful. This one at the Berry Patch, that's the berry pie, just looks amazing. That doesn't even look real.
It almost looks too good to eat.
Oh, well, that's the part of the problem. You look at it and you're like, I don't want to eat it. It's so pretty. Well, we could talk about food all day.
Lots of great options, and definitely bring your appetite.
Definitely. Well, with a new festival coming to the resort comes new merchandise. Be on the lookout for the Food and Wine Fest spirit jerseys, hats, t-shirts, pins, totes, and, of course, ears. There's even a special festival-themed cutting board shaped like a wine bottle. These items and more are available in Disney California Adventure Park for a limited time only. Be sure to check out Oswald's, Elias & Company, Trolley Treats, Off the Page, and the festival merchandise carts.
So, what... I had a chance, of course, there were new ears, so I had to check them out. So, you know, I'm sad to say these are not a pair of ears that I feel that I have to own. Usually I get this urge
There's
that I need to own it. Yeah, and they're even purple. So for those of you that haven't seen them, it's a purple head. It's a headband set of ears. The headband itself is purple. The bow is purple. The ear part is actually really beautiful. It's kind of like a tan with a darker purple print, and it's got different Mickeys doing different culinary looking things. There's little forks and spoons on it. But the thing that actually kind of deters me away from it is there's a golden fork and a golden spoon that kind of accent the bow. And to me, that's the part I don't like. If I could somehow take the silverware portion off of the bow, I would love these ears. But the silverware kind of, I don't know, it doesn't do it for me.
Well, what's not doing it for me is I'm looking at it and literally, and you said it earlier when we were writing the story, basically it looks like plastic cutlery that happens to be gold. Like,
see, this was my like joke thought about it is, they're pushing to get plastics out of the park. So perhaps these are functional ears, and this is your set of silverware, so you can go around and test all of your things. And then when you're not eating it, you just clean them off, and then you stick them back in your bow.
I'm glad you said clean it off, because I was thinking of dirty.
Oh gosh, yeah. No, you don't want to ruin the beautiful purple bow on the ears.
Right. This cutting board, the wine cutting board, looks really cool too. Mm-hmm. So
they have a whole line of different food and wine festival merchandise that is like for your kitchen. There was, of course, glassware, but they also had like things like salt and pepper shakers, which I was interested in.
This, for some reason, you said the salt and pepper shakers, and every time I think about salt and pepper shakers, I think of that great line from Aladdin, a Musical Spectacular, where he goes, "Poof, you're the Sultan, and if your last name was Pepper Shaker, you'd be Salt and Pepper Shaker."
Ba-dum-tsh.
It's a great joke.
Well, moving on. There are some premium experiences that you can sign up for during the Food and Wine Festival. Some of the premium events include beer, wine, and mixology seminars for $20 per person, up to a dinner with the Disney chefs at $314 per person. That includes a 4-course meal prepared by 3 of the chefs of the resort.
Yeah, there's some really cool things here. So under the beer, wine, and mixology seminars that are only $20 a person, you can do a beer education and tasting seminar. They have a mixology education and testing seminar. So some really cool things if you want to learn about, drinking, drinks and alcoholic beverages. Of course, I think something that might be more up your and my kind of thing is the Sweet Sundays, which have the Disneyland Resort executive pastry chef, somebody from a Food Network star, and from Food Network Challenge, Keegan Gerhard. So unfortunately, these are $132 a person, so I'm not sure if it's necessarily worth it. But if you're really into food and you really want to have some great experiences with some famous people that are very good with food, maybe this is up your alley.
So I'm not a big food person in the terms of knowing different famous chefs and that sort of thing. But so Guy Fieri is actually going to be doing one of the pairings. However, unfortunately, it looks like it was $135 per person. It was
he does a demonstration of his favorite dishes, how he got his start, basically kind of just like a whole thing with him.
But unfortunately, this event is already sold out.
Yeah. Well, we are excited to report that World of Color has returned. After almost an entire year, the popular show lit up the night over Paradise Bay on Friday. The show is scheduled to perform nightly going forward.
Thank the Disney, overlords, whatever you want to call it, whatever. Thank goodness this is back. Because, I looked it up. I believe it was April of 2018 was when it was closed for refurbishment, and it felt like the world's longest refurbishment. But hopefully all of the things that were wrong are now fixed, and we won't have to be without this show for quite some time.
Well, I'm hoping that as the holidays come back around on the calendar, which are still quite a ways away, that we'll get to see what the new show for the holidays was going to be this coming year. Because this also seems like one of those shows that's very easy. Obviously, in the time it's been around, it's had a few different variants. So it'll be interesting to see if they take the show that they had already kind of produced and play it this next year.
The other thing that I'm curious about, and I really want to fast forward to the Halloween season, is there were rumors that there was a villains-themed show that was going to be taking over World of Color
I'd be
for Halloween, which would be awesome in my opinion. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that rumor is true and we will be able to see that show later this year.
Let's hope.
With Mickey's Mix Magic, there are 2 versions of the show. The version that runs with fireworks generally runs Friday through Monday and Tuesday through Thursday without fireworks. Disneyland has updated their online schedule to know which version is scheduled for each night instead of just the generic Mickey's Mix Magic title. I think this is really great and really helpful.
Yeah.
'Cause otherwise, that's very confusing to know, am I getting fireworks? Am I not getting fireworks? And that's a big deal, especially, like, that's a big deal to me. I love fireworks, so I need to know if I need to expect fireworks or not.
Well, and the general visitor, the general guest, they're not necessarily, I mean, they're probably checking the website to see what things are closed and whatnot. They don't necessarily know that there's a version with or without fireworks.
Yeah, exactly.
So you might be planning your trip in the middle of the week and you're like, oh, we'll catch it on Wednesday, not realizing, oh, they're not going to have fireworks. Well, we're there Friday. Maybe we should watch the Friday version.
Sure. The other thing, too, that I would add on that is, for me, I would choose my viewing location based on if the fireworks were going to be going off that night or not. I feel like non-firework nights for me would be great over by watching it on the It's a Small World facade.
Oh, yeah.
Fireworks nights, though, I would want to be on Main Street or in front of the castle on the hub.
Sure.
I feel like that's the place for me for viewing the fireworks. Obviously, everybody's got different opinions on that, though.
Well, the Forbes Travel Guide has named the Grand Californian a Star Award winner and has listed it as recommended on their site. It is the first craftsman-style hotel to make the list and the only star winner in Anaheim.
Wow.
To become a star winner, the hotel has to pass up to 900 standards as judged by a Forbes inspector that checks in undercover and evaluates the rooms, amenities, and restaurants.
That's really incredible. Really incredible. Disney, a company that's known for its films, animation, and parks and resorts, is now on this just kind of exclusive list, right, for hotel standards too. I mean, we always talk about the quote unquote Disney standard on that, and a lot of people that go to either Disney parks or stay at Disney properties or even have gone on Disney cruises, you talk about this Disney standard. Sometimes I don't know if I just call it, like, if I'm kind of like, I don't know, in this like magical field because I just love Disney so much. So is it just seem like everything's perfect, or is it actually perfect?
Right.
I guess would be a good way of saying it. So it's really neat to know that people who, took the Disney feel off of it, they took away the mouse and they're just looking at this as a hotel and judging it based on what other hotels are doing too. It's gotten this really awesome, really great award. So that's really cool.
Yeah, so some of the highlights that the Forbes inspector kind of said was the decor, obviously, the main lobby and how that is all kind of designed. The fact that you're so close to California Adventure, like it's basically attached to the park, that it's very nice to be able to take, if you have young ones, to be able to take them back to the hotel. There is a water park that he said could probably charge admission, nice TVs and lounges and everything like that. And then obviously the Disney service standard, which everybody knows the Disney service standard is very high. And the fact that you are, one of the other things they said was the fact that when you're waiting to check in the lobby, there's cast members there with like iPads and stuff trying to expedite your check-in, which I think is really awesome. So I know, Patreon Alex that we had on the show, I know he stayed at the Grand Californian and he really likes it. So it's definitely one of those things where I bet you he feels even better about his choice now.
Well, as we discussed previously, alternatives to plastic straws and lids have been expanding across the resort. This week it has been reported that the paper straws have expanded from just the Hungry Bear restaurant to other dining locations all over the resort.
And the one thing people were very excited about with this is they are the same made in the USA paper straws that Animal Kingdom has, which kind of makes sense. They're probably ordering it from the same vendor. So that's really nice. I also heard that they should be coming out with some environmentally friendly lids.
Yeah, I think I heard maybe possibly biodegradable lids, which would be awesome. And those would only be available, by request. So they wouldn't just be handing them out with every single beverage purchase, which is good too, because even though it's better for the environment, it's better maybe just to do without if you don't need to. The thing that I find so exciting is when we visited the Animal Kingdom and I tried these straws out myself, I was a little leery because to me, putting paper into liquid, it's going to get soggy and gross and terrible, and I felt that it was just going to collapse on itself, and it was just going to be kind of a mess and a nuisance, I guess would be a good way of saying it. These straws, I don't know what they do to them. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. The straw itself didn't ever get like soft and start breaking down. We were at one of the buffets there, so we were sitting around for a while everybody was enjoying their multiple courses and multiple trips to the buffet.
Sure.
So I had this straw sitting in a glass for quite some time, and I was amazed that it didn't get kind of like I said, like soft, I guess.
Are they like wax straws?
It must be. There must be a thin wax coating on it or something.
You know, like your paper cups, they're coated in wax or whatever.
Yep, yeah. It's got to be something like that.
Well, more as we get closer to Galaxy's Edge opening, there's going to be more and more news coming out about specific things. Well, we have a couple things to report on this week.
I feel like the first one is big.
Well, yeah, the first one is big. So, which is kind of sad, actually, because I would have thought, for those of you looking at the Rise of the Resistance attraction that have little kids, it was a dark ride. It happens to be trackless. You think you can bring your kids on it? Perhaps not. The Rise of the Resistance attraction coming to Galaxy's Edge this summer has a height requirement. Guests will have to be 40 inches or taller to ride, as there is a sudden drop at the end that is said to emulate being launched out of an escape pod back down to Batuu. This is the first trackless ride to include such a drop.
So, for point of reference, other attractions that also have the 40-inch height requirement would be Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, Space Mountain, Splash Mountain, and Star Tours.
Yeah. I'm sad that there is a height requirement because I am a big fan of not having height requirements as much as possible because to go along with Walt's whole thing that he wants it to be a place for everyone to have fun. If you have younger kids that are under 40 inches, it kind of spoils it that they can't go on it, especially I'm sure there's a lot of younger kids that are shorter than 40 inches that love Star Wars, so unfortunately this will be one of those attractions they can't take part of. However, the idea that there is a drop at the end that's supposed to seem like you're being sent out of a escape pod back down to the planet.
That's interesting.
Very exciting.
Very interesting. And then also just to kind of add to it, those are the attractions in Disneyland that you have to be 40 inches or taller for. Over in California Adventure, now this is interesting. You have to be 40 inches or taller to ride on Jumpin' Jellyfish, Guardians of the Galaxy, Radiator Springs Raceway, and Soarin' Around the World. It does look like the Silly Symphony swings, that's a rule for the tandem swings only. So I'm kind of surprised because Jumpin' Jellyfish to me doesn't seem like that much of an attraction that you'd have to worry that much about height.
Right.
So,
and it's for smaller kids. I mean, I like going on it because...
Same thing with Soarin', that seems like a very calm ride. So, I mean, it is good to see that there are other attractions that I feel aren't crazy that you shouldn't have to have a height restriction on that also do have it. So there's obviously something to it.
Yeah.
Well, the official Disneyland Annual Pass Twitter account has also confirmed that the alcoholic beverages from the cantina in Galaxy's Edge will be limited to only be consumed in the cantina itself. Guests are not going to be allowed to take any of these beverages outside of the establishment.
Yeah, I know this has been something that people have been talking about for a while that they were concerned about because up until Galaxy's Edge opens, other than Club 33, alcohol was not sold in Disneyland Park. However, alcohol was sold in California Adventure, and it really hasn't been too big of a deal over there. Obviously, like Epcot in Disney World also sells alcohol. It's not really an issue over there either. But it's just kind of been one of those standards that Disneyland has always had, that there is no alcohol in the park. So one of the concerns was, people that have been drinking or whatever might ruin your Disney experience. But I'm not thinking that they're going to make it... they're going to be fairly strict, I think, on it and not let you out of the establishment. So, well, now you can take in the unbelievable sights and indescribable feelings of Disneyland with a new set of ears. New Aladdin-inspired ears are now available at the resort. The Magic Carpet ears are turquoise with a Magic Carpet-themed bow. This is cute. I think it's a good use of the carpet.
I love these ears so much. And yes, they're very unique. It's not the typical... ear like they do for other things. It's I don't know. For me, it's a very unique spin on a very popular item, I guess would be a good way of saying it.
Yeah, because that turquoise is very reminiscent of like Jasmine's dress.
Yep. The turquoise is very much the same color as Jasmine's outfit. I guess I'd say her princess outfit in the movie. And then obviously the carpet is the carpet. I do love
the bow,
that. Yeah, the carpet is the bow. But it looks exactly like the Magic Carpet. The thing I really like is the touch of how it has tassels.
Oh yeah,
just like carpet does in the movie.
I wonder, I guess this is on your head and not in your face, because I was thinking, would this be annoying if it was like in your face? But I realized it's probably up here on your head, so you're not going to notice it.
Yeah, it's up on your head. I love these ears so much.
Well, Teresa's got some more information for those of you who like ears.
Yes, speaking of ears. So some of you know this already because you joined us for our cast member and above patron perk. We did a live Google Hangout for those folks over the weekend. And I had been holding on to something very exciting for me, and it was really difficult for me to not bust into these things. I seriously bought them and had a moment when I was in the car and had this like internal struggle on if I should do it or not. But I didn't. I held off.
What is it?
But what they were was at Claire's. So you guys might be familiar. Claire's is a kind of like a jewelry store, I guess, that you can always find in malls. But they have a little Disney section that I did not know of. I had heard that they had these, basically they were mystery mini headband ears. And so it came in this foil pack, and there were 5 different pairs of ears that it could have been. And so during the live stream I had purchased 3. They were only $10, which
for all 3?
No, $10 each.
Oh.
So they were on sale originally like $15 or something, and I got them for $10. So I thought that was a pretty big steal because I basically got 3 ears for the price of 1 park pair of ears, since park ears
nice
are now
ears too.
$27.99. Somehow I did not get duplicates. I don't know how my luck was that good, but I didn't get duplicates, and the quality was awesome. So that I had a ton of fun opening it up, and I hope everybody had fun while we were kind of doing that. It was just something different to do during the live stream.
Yeah, and I ended up wearing 1 pair, and producer James ended up wearing a pair.
Yes.
So we all got in on it.
Since it worked out well that they just happened to have 3 in the store. So we each got a pair of mystery ears to wear during the live stream.
Very convenient.
Well, now we take a trip on over to Trivia Land, where producer James will try to stump us with Disney trivia. He's going to read us a question, we're going to attempt to answer, and then James will give us the correct answers after the discussion topic. So what do you have for us this week, James?
Well, we're going to start off with a nice one from listener Daniel. And he wants to know, what is the most popular Disneyland souvenir of all time?
Ears!
It has to be the Mickey ears.
Ears.
All right, our second question is, how many types of vehicles will take you up and down Main Street, USA?
Ooh.
Wait a minute, how many types?
Ooh.
How many types of vehicles?
Motorized or
All
vehicles?
vehicles.
Well, you've got the
horse-drawn carriage.
Omnibus. The omnibus. The fire engine.
I don't know what all... I'm trying to think what they're all called. There's like 5.
What's the fire engine?
No, I know, but I'm thinking that there's like a streetcar-looking thing.
Streetcar-looking thing.
Take that back. That's California Adventure, I'm thinking. Isn't there something else? There's the horse-drawn streetcar. I thought there was something else that used the tracks.
No, the tracks are
There's not a horse-drawn carriage.
No.
Maybe it's just the 3. I feel like there's more than a 3.
I'm just imagining listeners screaming at you two right now.
Up
and down Main Street, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I'm like, okay, what are we... Like, I feel like there's an obvious thing.
No, I was saying that you two just going back and forth, and they're probably like, come on, it's so easy.
Yeah. I feel like I'm missing one. Mm-hmm. I feel like there's 4. Mm-hmm. There's 4. Did you just want the number?
I did just ask how many. So
4.
Yeah, 4.
All right, next question is, where can you find cemeteries in Disneyland?
Haunted Mansion.
Big Thunder Mountain Railroad.
Oh, yeah. Wait. Fake or real? I don't know why I need that clarification.
We'll go with fake.
Okay.
Though
Are we just talking about?
I'd give you credit for the Pet Cemetery. I'm just talking about Disneyland.
There's the. Well, are you counting the Pet Cemetery as a separate cemetery from the regular Haunted Mansion cemetery?
You can lump those together as one.
Okay, so it's the Haunted Mansion.
And then there's one at Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. Mm-hmm. Oh, does the one at the shooting arcade count? Because one of the things you shoot at is tombstones. So that'll be 3.
I feel like that's a stretch.
No, it's a cemetery.
Okay.
3. I think that's it. Unless you count the Primeval World as a cemetery.
It's dark.
It's scary.
Terry's.
Can you tell us how many we're trying to find?
I have a list of 5.
Oh my gosh.
Well, we came up with 3.
Oh. Indiana Jones. Is there anything in Indiana Jones a queue?
Wait a minute. Are you counting the inside of the Haunted Mansion separately from the outside of the Haunted Mansion?
Yes.
So there's the cemetery inside
so
the Haunted Mansion.
2 for the Haunted Mansion.
2 for the Haunted Mansion. The shooting
Technically, wait,
arcade.
I'm wondering if I think it's over in Adventureland somewhere. I think it has something to do with Indiana Jones, because in the queue we've got all of those skeletons. Is that okay? What do you consider a cemetery? Are there headstones?
Yeah.
There are headstones.
Okay. Oh, isn't there one like on the end of Tom Sawyer Island or somewhere around the back of the Rivers of America there? I feel like there used to be the one at the end of Tom Sawyer Island. That's what I'm going to say. That's my
back
5th. Yeah. By the burning cabin that's not the burning cabin anymore.
By the burning cabin, that's, not the burning cabin anymore. Okay, I'm stumped. Let's move on.
Okay.
All right, and our last question, the impossible question of the night, which comes from Gretchen.
This last one wasn't impossible?
Oh, no, just you
Gretchen.
wait.
Oh, Lord. Gretchen.
Oh, boy. Gretchen, what do you have in store for us?
So you mentioned the Primeval World. As you go through the present day and Primeval World dioramas on the Disneyland Railroad, what is the name of the piece of music that plays?
Oh, boy.
Bonus if you know the composer.
Oh, boy. It's a classical piece. That's as far as I got.
I have no idea.
Buckets.
So I will give you
Is it Primeval World?
It is not. I will give you a hint that it is
Man.
relatively related to the topography of the dioramas.
I'm going to say The Majestic Grand Canyon by Tchaikovsky. Whatever. I mean, what else are we going to say?
I don't. Yeah.
It's better to give an answer and be wrong than to not give an answer and be wrong. Or, who was the guy from Fantasia? Was that Leopold Strakowski? Or Strakowski. That's what I want. Strakowski.
There's a little bit of a difference between Strakowski and...
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Minor details. Find out how surprisingly close Tag was to getting that answer right after the discussion topic.
Really. That's got to be... He's being... No. There's no way.
No.
You are so close. I can't believe it.
Tag is?
Yes.
With Grand Canyon?
Yes.
Oh, dear God.
It's probably called like the Grand Canyon Suite or something like that.
So this week for our discussion topic, we are going to take a closer look at the beloved Matterhorn Mountain and its wonderfully fun bobsleds.
Oh, yes.
So, the Matterhorn's really, really kind of interesting. It's definitely a Disneyland icon. The only park that the Matterhorn is in is Disneyland. So I think it's very special because of that.
Before you get too far into it, do you know what the location of where the Matterhorn is now, what it was called before it was the Matterhorn?
Oh, there were multiple names. Lover's Lane is one of the things that happened that it wasn't... Well, I guess Lover's Lane was maybe a nickname, but wasn't it like Snow Hill or something like...
It was Holiday Hill.
Holiday Hill. I was pretty close with Snow.
Yeah, you were. But yes, I think that there were some lovers that go up there like on dates and stuff.
The unofficial Lover's Lane.
And I think that they decided Disney was dismayed by this and wanted to turn it into something. So,
oh, wait. In this period, the hill began to be known as Snow Hill.
Yeah.
You said it was Holiday Hill. I said Snow Hill.
When the park opened, the area dubbed Holiday Hill was improved with benches and pathways. Hold on. And then it said in 1956 they wanted to do a toboggan ride. In this period, the hill began to be known as Snow Hill.
Oh, so I was kind of right.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, we have two different...
The reason that the hill was there was because it was where they had put the dirt from digging the moat around Sleeping Beauty Castle when the park was created, which I think is pretty cool.
So it was after the opening of the Skyway, which was back in 1956, Mr. Walt conceived the idea of how much fun it would be to have some sort of toboggan-themed ride on a mountain and have some real snow. But obviously, we're in California, real snow was going to be a little bit difficult.
Yes.
So we had to sprinkle a little pixie dust on this.
But this
idea.
last week there was snow in California.
There
That is
was.
not
Yes,
that is
there
not
was.
normal.
There was. But anyways, so back in this time, they were getting some new, they're called wild mouse style roller coasters, which of course got Disney's attention and the execs' attention. So they were trying to figure out how to use this technology to create their toboggan themed coaster and then also create an artificial mountain at this site.
Which in part was to hide the tower for the Skyway, which
Yes.
I think is a brilliant idea.
Very clever.
Yeah, and
Very,
one
very
of the
clever.
things, I know you never got to experience this, Teresa, but one of the things I loved when I used to go to the park when I was younger was that the Skyway used to go through the Matterhorn.
So cool.
Yeah.
So cool.
Very cool.
So the interesting thing though, and I feel like we talked about this in a previous episode because I thought it was so
Probably
unique.
when we did the tour.
Was while Disney was actually in Switzerland, he was filming Third Man on the Mountain. He came to see the actual real Matterhorn. So for those of you that don't know, there's an actual mountain called the Matterhorn. It exists in Switzerland, but he saw the actual natural mountain and kind of fell in love with it. But the best part though is I believe, I don't remember where we found this tidbit of information, but he actually had sent a postcard with the Matterhorn mountain on the front of it, and on the back he basically said, "Build this," and sent it to him. And his inspiration for the Matterhorn was the real Matterhorn mountain itself in Switzerland.
Wow. Can you imagine being Walt Disney? You're like, this is great. Build it.
Do it. Make it happen. But, I mean, it was Walt Disney. He made the waterfall go backwards. I mean, he did all sorts of crazy ideas and crazy concepts. So, to them, that was actually probably a little relieved. You know, they were probably a little bit relieved that they just, it's just a mountain. All we have to do is build a mountain. That's fine.
Well, and when it first opened, I'm getting a little ahead of ourselves, but when it first opened, it was mostly hollow inside. It was mostly just a shell on the outside with this attraction going through it.
Yes, and I think people questioned Disney about that, and he joked that it was a Swiss mountain, so of course it had to have holes like Swiss cheese.
That's a very Walt Disney answer.
Right.
So, the Matterhorn opened on June 14th, 1959, along with two other Tomorrowland attractions. So that year, the Submarine Voyage opened and the Monorail also opened. So a very big year for Tomorrowland. And it's interesting that originally the Matterhorn was technically part of Tomorrowland.
Mm-hmm. So the coaster itself was, of course, built by the Imagineering department, but also Aero Development. But the thing that's so cool about this is this roller coaster was the first tubular steel roller coaster in the world. So it's kind of a national landmark, not national landmark, but for roller coaster enthusiasts, this is a big deal. This was the first. And the thing that's so cool is that it's still, you can still appreciate it and ride it today. But the original one consisted of a wood and steel infrastructure for the actual mountain itself, surrounded by the man-made rock.
Well, and if you think about it, I don't know how many roller coasters you've ridden, but I would say a lot of roller coasters nowadays are tubular steel. So this kind of was like the beginning of tubular steel roller coasters. So I think it's a great attraction. I love it. As I said earlier, it was part of Tomorrowland, which I think is kind of a weird spot.
Yeah.
But in the early 70s, the ride was officially made a part of Fantasyland. And then later on in the decade, in 1978, it received its first major refurbishment. So what they wanted to do is the Imagineers wanted to break up the big hollow interior space into a number of small caves and tunnels for a more convincing theme, which I think was way overdue because can you imagine this attraction is just big open on the inside?
But part of me thinks it'd be really cool to ride that attraction with kind of the holes, I guess. Because could you imagine being able to have those different views of the park? It had to be really interesting.
That is true. Now, with the 1978 refurbishment, a staple of this attraction came to be.
This is mind-boggling.
And that is Harold.
It is so mind-boggling to me. I can't believe that this attraction was almost 20 years before poor Harold was introduced to this attraction. That's just for some reason mind-boggling to me because for me, he makes the attraction. He is like the guy, he's the center of attention for this attraction. And like when you think the Matterhorn, you think bobsleds, but you definitely think Harold. You think of the Abominable Snowman. So it'd be really strange for me to ride this attraction without him there.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of adds a thrilling aspect of it because it's kind of like you're being chased by Harold.
Side note, I don't know if I have shared this on the podcast, but one of my first trips to Disneyland, and I was older. It was not like I was a tiny child and I had every right to be terrified. I was terrified of going on the Matterhorn, and I actually made up some sort of excuse so I didn't have to go and stayed off of it because I heard that there was an abominable snowman in the mountain, and I wanted nothing to do with that. That was so scary to me. So I made some sort of excuse so that I didn't have to go on. Somebody else, I think somebody in our party wasn't feeling the greatest or just wanted to.
So you wanted to stay with them.
So I said, "Oh, I'll stay with them." So I volunteered to.
Teresa,
being
you're
so
such
nice.
a good person.
No, I was terrified of Harold. He is scary though. He's very convincing looking.
Yeah, and he's been upgraded over the years too, so we get a little bit more movement.
Even
and stuff.
more convincing,
right? Well, the next big change to the Matterhorn would come 16 years later, after the closure of the Skyway in 1994, where the holes through which the Skyway buckets traveled were partially filled in. So the holes on the Tomorrowland side remained mostly intact, and the area there was a grotto filled with glimmering crystals that was installed, and an abandoned crate labeled Wells Expedition was added as a tribute to Frank Wells, who had died earlier that year. Him and Michael Eisner kind of ran the Disney company through much of the 80s up through the early 90s, and then I believe he passed away in a tragic helicopter accident or something.
I wanted to mention this when we were talking about Harold. Sorry, I'm still stuck on Harold.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
No, you're fine. So for those of you that don't know, there are actually 3 animatronic Heralds, or a Yeti, Abominable, whatever you want to call them.
Harold.
3 Heralds in the attraction. There's one that... sorry, I'm going to back up even further. So for those of you that aren't really familiar with this attraction, there are 2 separate tracks for this attraction. There's called the Fantasyland track and then also the Tomorrowland track. And that basically is just what half of the mountain you've entered in on. So anyways, so there are three animatronics. So one of them is actually seen by both tracks, and then each track has their own herald on it too. So that's interesting. So I guess, well, the one he's kind of like in the middle of a Y in the beginning, and you kind of both jet off to either side of him. But
do you have a favorite side of the Matterhorn?
I think I do. I think it's the Fantasyland side.
I'm trying to think.
And it's because I get less wet when we come down, which we'll get into why there's that water feature at the end of it later. I
think I like the Tomorrowland side better because it whips you around more, and I like that jostlingness of it. But I also feel maybe it's the Fantasyland side you get the better views on, though.
I don't know. My big thing is I get less wet on the Fantasyland side. The last time when we were there, when Vern and I were just there, soaked. It looked like I had gotten off of Splash Mountain. I was soaked. I've never gotten that wet on that attraction. Usually just sprays next to you and maybe you get a little bit of a mist, but no, it dumped into my bobsled with me. So after that, I decided that was not my favorite side anymore.
Right. Well, after 1994, the next big refurbishment was in 2012, which included repainting and resculpting parts of the mountain face to achieve greater sense of realism, with the new snow painted in such a manner to more naturally spread onto the mountain so it looked more realistic. They also added some beads of glass into the paint to allow it to have more of a shimmering effect so it looks like real snow. It was also the first time the Matterhorn was covered completely in scaffolding since its original construction, and this is also when it received a new set of bobsleds and a renovated load area. People do not like these bobsleds though, because I actually liked the old ones where you would sit together in each other's laps and go, because it was much less jarring, and I don't know, I liked those a lot.
See, and I think I'm one of the few people that I like the newer version better. I don't know why. I feel like I'm safer. I'm more so again, for those of you that maybe hadn't ridden this attraction, the original bobsled, I don't know, it was very open feeling to me. You didn't have seats per se. You just kind of were on this. You felt like you were on a sled, I guess would be a good way of explaining it. And so you would 2 people per ride vehicle. There'd be one in the front. The person in the back actually had to like spread their legs to like put their legs kind of around your butt and your torso area. So it was more intimate because you were definitely touching each other, and if you would get jarred around, you'd be bumping into each other. So for me, that was terrifying because there was no sides to this thing, and I felt like I could just whoosh right off the mountain.
Well, there were sides, but it was low. Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't feel as enclosed, and these are more like, I guess it feels more like Space Mountain's ride vehicle, where you kind of get down into it and it's a seat, and you have the lap bar.
Yeah, you're definitely more enclosed, but that's kind of the complaint, is because of the fact that you're so enclosed and that the ride vehicles could only be so long because of the track and curvatures and whatnot, that you really don't have a lot of room, especially if you're a larger person. If you're tall, it's very uncomfortable because you hit your knees and stuff. If you have a few extra pounds on you, it's very, very challenging because you're shoved into this kind of little area, where before it was nice because you had all that extra room. Yeah. And I liked it because when if you're there with somebody, your loved one, it's nice to be able to cuddle up and kind of do that little grab. It's like being in the movie theater with a scary movie, and you grab each other.
See,
it's just one of those things.
Now, my memory of doing the sled toboggan, more styled ride vehicle, was me sitting in front with my little brother behind me, and it was just awkward. So I could see, and then the other thing too is with that old style, I don't think they would do it, but could you imagine single rider if they had a single rider line with that?
They wouldn't put you in.
No, but you know what I mean. But now, because you have the kind of compartments, I guess would be a good way of saying it, they do have single rider.
So you don't have to be stuck with some weirdo.
Not weirdo, just some random person you don't know, and you're having to wrap your legs around this other person that you've just met. A little different, but who knows? Maybe that random person could be the love of your life or your new best friend. I don't know.
There you go.
But anyways, the last big change to the Matterhorn was actually in 2015. This one is so exciting to me. The big thing for me was that they swapped out the animatronics for the Yeti. So this one, he moves way more fluid. He's very realistic. The other things that they did too is there are gaps next to the ride vehicles on the first lift that was filled with a thin layer of ice per se, and there's now these kind of projections of the Yeti following you, and you can see his like shadow peering at you through the ice and kind of following you around the mountain, so you feel kind of like you're being chased by the Yeti.
It really sells the story from the beginning.
Yes, I feel like it's a more well-rounded theming now with that too.
Well, the crystal scene was replaced with a wreck camp of unlucky hikers. Large footprints lead to their equipment, which includes 2 of the original bobsleds.
Yes.
As well as bucket number 59 from 1959, or it's possibly a replica from the Skyway attraction, which is super awesome.
Mm-hmm. And then the final, most recent big change to the Matterhorn actually wasn't to the mountain itself, but earlier, not earlier this year anymore. Last year, they had closed the attraction and they completely reworked the front queue area, which, in my opinion, is really, really well done. And I think it pulls the theming together so well.
It was needed because there definitely wasn't a themed area, and it was not meant for the amount of people that are at the parks now, for sure.
Mm-hmm. So some interesting things about the Matterhorn attraction itself is, even though we did talk about how there are 2 different tracks, the Matterhorn actually only has 1 lift hill. So the bobsleds ascend parallel to each other at the start of the ride, and this is where those new snow ice walls are that Harold's kind of like crawling up there with you. But the rest of the ride is basically an unpowered coast through the Matterhorn's different tunnels and caves and passageways.
Well, and there's parts that go down so you get a little bit more speed and stuff. Like, it's not just,
But you're basically coasting.
Yep.
It's very cool.
Well, and then, of course, the next bit is a fact that you definitely want to talk about with the splashdown.
Oh, yes. So we were talking about how I had gotten soaked the last time I was on the Matterhorn. And so anyway, so there's pools at the end of each track, and they're actually kind of dual purpose. Well, really 3-purposed because it's theming, obviously.
Sure.
But also they cool off the braking fins that are mounted on the underside of the bobsled ride vehicles. But also the impact into the water kind of acts as a natural braking mechanism as well. So because the bobsleds are constantly in and out of the water, they do have to be waxed.
That's what keeps them looking so good.
Yep. So they're nice and shiny.
Now, one thing that is sad about the Matterhorn for me is I feel like, especially in recent years, because of the fact that it is older now, and they have replaced parts of the track and stuff over the years, but I feel like at least once a year it's down for a couple of months for them to do more maintenance on it, because it does take a lot of upkeep with the older tracks and stuff.
A lot of TLC.
And then, of course, this next one is a very common rumor, but it is there. So a basketball half-size court existed inside the structure above the coaster near the top, where the people who used to climb the mountain would play between climbs. It was locked for safety reasons and accessible only to climbers, but it was relocated slightly during the installation of the Tinkerbell flight equipment prior to the 50th anniversary. The hoop and playing area remain intact. There is a cast member break room inside the mountain at the base. So that's another thing that that we didn't really talk about yet, but the Matterhorn definitely is an integral part to the fireworks shows recently, because they installed some great equipment that allows Tinkerbell to come off of the mountain and fly over the castle and everything. And, of course, not only Tinkerbell, but Dumbo has flown on it.
Yes.
Zero has flown on it. The Up House recently has flown on it. So
Buzz Lightyear.
There's not just Tinkerbell has flown on this thing, but and it's got some cool mechanisms that allow them to go back and forth on the line, which is super cool. And then, of course, I always remember the 50th anniversary because there were also fireworks launchers up there for part of that show. And there was projections on the side of the Matterhorn. So on a personal note, the Matterhorn always reminded me of when we would go to Disneyland, because it was, for the longest time, the tallest thing in the park that you would see from coming down the I-5 freeway. You would see the Matterhorn, and you'd be like, oh, we're at Disneyland. It's so exciting. But now there's some things that are taller. Of course, there's a lot of trees and stuff that are
well, and there's a lot
it.
of very tall attractions over in California Adventure as well.
Yeah. And then, of course, we can't talk about the Matterhorn and not talk about Remain Seated, Please. Permanecer sentados, por favor. Which was one of many recordings by the voice of Disneyland, Jack Wagner. It was changed in 2005, but the Permanecer sentados, por favor, which everybody remembers, has stayed intact. So that's one thing I love about the attraction, is you're slowly coming around to the offloading point.
I do like and be sure to watch your children. Auf Wiedersehen.
Well, yes, of course, right? In a morbid note, there have been 2 deaths on the Matterhorn. One was in 1964 when a guest unbuckled his seatbelt and tried to stand up as the bobsled approached the peak, lost his balance, and fell. And then there was another one, somebody who was age 48 in 1984, that she was catapulted from her cart and was hit by another bobsled. So, like Teresa said, with the old design, you need to stay clipped in and don't get out of ride vehicles ever.
You know, this was something that I thought was really interesting that we uncovered during our research. So as we mentioned, the Matterhorn can only be found in Disneyland in California. There are a couple other parks that almost did get their version of the Matterhorn. Walt Disney World, actually, it looked like they were trying to maybe fit it into the Magic Kingdom, or perhaps looking at doing a Switzerland pavilion in Epcot. Or they were thinking about doing it as an unfinished piece of a movie scenery set thing over in the Hollywood Studios park. The other thing that was interesting, too, that we actually had to look, and you can see there's evidence still there, but Disneyland Paris was very close to getting their own version of the Matterhorn bobsleds. It basically would have been an updated replica that they would have placed behind the Fantasyland train station. They actually have a tunnel that was built so that the attraction would be accessible. The ride was never built. However, the tunnel is still there and has not been removed.
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of like the fact that the Matterhorn never ended up anywhere else, because I like the fact that there's something really unique to Disneyland. It's very Disneyland.
We were talking about this there's some rumors that maybe other attractions that are going in some other parks, rumors that are they coming, the same attraction, is it possibly coming to Disneyland? I kind of have this weird feeling now that I would be completely okay with certain attractions only being located in certain parks, because then that makes me want to go visit these other parks. If I can go to Disneyland and see absolutely everything that I could possibly see in, for example, Disneyland Paris, I don't have as much as a draw and a pull. I'm not as excited to go see Disneyland Paris because it's kind of like a, I don't want to say been there, done that, but it's stuff I've already experienced. Whereas if there's new and exciting things that I've never experienced before, it's just that much more exciting for me to go to the other parks and visit it. Not that we don't love Disneyland.
No, of course.
But it is, I think it is, there is something nice to have attractions that are only at certain parks.
Yeah.
Especially Disneyland, because we're awesome. One thing we almost forgot to mention about the Matterhorn, and I think is so interesting and so unique and feels to me like only in Disney would this happen, but they actually used to employ real mountain climbers that would climb the Matterhorn facade throughout the day. And even there were sometimes that Mickey himself or Goofy would climb the mountain, which is, when you think about that, come on, that's mind-boggling. I could not imagine being the cast member in that outfit climbing a mountain with, I mean, wow.
We were talking about how amazing it was that he played drums.
Yeah, we were talking about how great it was that he played drums and he danced with Minnie for the special on TV, and now he's climbing a mountain. I mean, come on. But, yeah, first of all, me climbing a mountain in and of itself is a feat, right? And then to do it in one of these costumes is just incredible.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you guys enjoyed learning a little bit more about the Matterhorn tonight. It is definitely one of my favorite attractions at Disneyland, I would say. I always enjoy going on the Matterhorn.
It's so interesting. It's so unique. The thing that's just kind of, it feels out of place, but that also, for me, makes it perfectly placed, I guess would be a good way of saying it. I don't think it really fits into Tomorrowland or Fantasyland. To me, the Matterhorn's its own little, like, Matterhorn land island, because the theming of it's just so unique. If you're going to have to tie it in, obviously Fantasyland would be the better theming or tie-in for the land.
Actually, wouldn't you think that like Adventureland would be a good spot, because like that true life kind of stuff?
But it's on the other side of the park.
yes. But I'm saying if you were going to pick somewhere,
I'm saying for its neighbors, it's more Fantasyland-esque.
Sure, I gotcha. Well, did we miss anything? Do you guys have any fancy tips or information about the Matterhorn that we did not cover? You can go ahead and send those in to feedback@dlweekly.net, and we might talk about them on a future episode. So, well, did you know that you can rate and review DL Weekly on iTunes every 6 months? If you haven't reviewed us recently, please do so. It helps get our ranking better and allows the community to grow.
Well, did you enjoy listening to this episode of DL Weekly and learning more about the Matterhorn? Well, you can support the show for as little as 25 cents an episode. If you want access to our supporter chat that we always talk about, it's only 75 cents an episode. Please consider joining supporters like John M. and head over to dlweekly.net/support.
Well, now it's time to return to James and Trivia Land to get answers to the trivia. I am excited to find out about this tombstone question.
Oh,
that's for sure.
yeah, me too. I forgot about that.
How could you forget? You spent
Maybe
so
it's
much
in the
time on it.
Matterhorn. No.
That would have been a really depressing discussion topic if you missed it.
Right.
All right, so our first question from Daniel was, what is the most popular Disneyland souvenir of all time?
We said ears.
And that's absolutely right. Over 84 million ears have been sold since they opened.
How many?
Over 84 million.
You know, I don't have quite that many in my collection yet.
Well, you got something to aspire to.
Ooh, tell us how many ride vehicles there are.
How many vehicles will take you up and down Main Street, USA?
We said 4.
You're correct.
Okay, what
did we miss? Hold on. So we said the horse-drawn carriage.
Double-decker bus.
That's the omnibus.
Oh.
The omnibus, the fire engine, and
there's the horseless carriage, also known as a jitney.
Carriage.
Oh.
So
Dang it.
It's like a car.
But we got 4.
I said streetcar, and then I talked myself out of it.
So
you said streetcar, and it made me think of like the streetcar, like the red car trolley.
Yeah. I know, and then we got derailed.
Yeah.
But you got it right, so you got the point. So
that's almost as good as my Jafar joke earlier.
You can celebrate that because there's not too much that left.
Okay, we're dying to know the answer to the next one, James.
Are you dying to know? Dying to get into these cemeteries, perhaps? Oh, man, these jokes are terrible.
It's a good thing this is not a comedy podcast.
Because we're not that funny.
No.
Where can you find a cemetery in Disneyland?
So there's the one
Haunted Inside and Out.
Yeah, Haunted Inside and Out.
Big Thunder.
Big Thunder.
In the queue, or is it actually on? I'm trying to think now.
I think it's just, it's somewhere. And then the shooting arcade, I said. And we couldn't figure out.
You said Tom Sawyer Island.
Oh, Tom Sawyer Island.
And I'm going to go with Indiana Jones.
Okay.
So you together got 3 of them, right? Inside the Haunted Mansion, outside the Haunted Mansion, and the Frontierland shooting spot. I don't believe there is a cemetery in Big Thunder.
Okay.
I could not find one watching a point of view after the initial questions. So.
Sure.
So the 2 you missed, Teresa, is Tom Sawyer's Island. There's I think it's called the Pioneer Cemetery behind.
That was
the
mine.
fort. Yep. So
you
take
said
out
I
that one, right?
missed it.
Oh, sorry.
And the one you both missed is in Storybook Land Canal Boats. There's a little cemetery in Alice's section by the church.
Yes.
In what section?
With Alice's section.
Oh, that's a good one.
I need to look this
I
up now.
thought about that, but I'm like, no, it's happy in Storybook Land. There's not going to be a little. Yes. Ooh, that's a good hidden one.
Super sneaky, yeah. I wasn't sure if that one would get you the shooting experience, so I was impressed you pulled that one off.
Sometimes
the
I can do it.
experience, I feel, is kind of that's an iffy one.
There's headstones. It counts.
Right. No, I know.
Was there? Oh, and then the last one.
Yeah, and our last question from Gretchen was, as you go through present-day and primeval world dioramas on the Disneyland Railroad, what is the name of the piece of music that plays? Bonus if you know the composer.
So I said like the Majestic Grand Canyon by Strakowski, and you said you don't know.
I said Natural Wonders.
Sure.
Yeah, so Tag, you were so close. It's called the Grand Canyon Suite.
Oh.
And the composer, bear with me, is Ferde Groffa.
Sure.
So, yeah, that's your trivia. You have any great questions like Gretchen and Daniel did this week? I'd love to have them and ask them on the podcast. You can send me an email at trivia@dlweekly.net.
And we will endeavor to answer them incorrectly like we typically do. We will be back next week with more Disneyland news and information.
So until then, go out and enjoy the parks.
Ladies and gentlemen, Disneyland has now ended its normal operating day. We hope you've enjoyed your visit to the Magic Kingdom and that you'll be back with us again soon.